Yeah, remind me again how this topic all came up.
I don't know. You popped it up like randomly in the end of a show, like you kind of do, where you're like, okay, let's end the show, and then you blather on for 45 seconds. It's
You're
kind of
such
like that.
an asshole.
So it just popped out of that. Hi, welcome to the Nikta and Jason show. I'm Jason. This is Nikta. Today we're going to revisit a brief comment in another episode when we were discussing should product managers be technical, and what we said was, well, yes, probably a little bit, and it behooves everyone on the team to learn the other roles on the team because that makes you a better at getting the job done. And so we wanted to expand a bit on that about who should educate the others on their job. Who's responsible? Is it the engineer's responsibility to learn all about business so that they can understand the product manager, or is the product manager's job to educate the engineer on business topics? Nikta, what do you think?
I think that it's everybody's own job to educate others about whatever needs to be understood by the team. So I think when we were talking about this, I can't remember if it came up in that episode about like technical product managers, but like as a product manager, right, I could spend every night going online and taking like coding boot camps or something in order to become more technical so that I can better match, you were talking about like mental models and stuff and us being able to communicate about technical issues. So I could take that upon myself, sure. But I shouldn't have to. Like, if I choose to do that, then good for me, great. But really, it's your job as the technical person to not only be good at the technical work, but to also be good at communicating challenges or things that are causing you to be blocked or something that needs to be escalated to management. Like, it's your job to be able to communicate that stuff to a non-technical person. And likewise, you could go home every night and read books about business strategy and whatever, like making products. And if you do that, good for you. But it's my job to explain to you, like, why we have to do things a certain way, or what the customer is expecting, or why we need to ship an MVP by this date. Like, it's incumbent on the expert to be able to communicate their expertise to non-experts. And I'll never forget someone who I shall not name in case they want to be anonymous, but a very close person to me, who's very smart and very technical. When they were younger, they would try to explain these technical issues to their dad. And his dad was like, I don't understand. And if I don't understand, that's not my fault. That's your fault, because you are assuming a level of knowledge, or you're assuming that I can, follow something that you are an expert in. And so it's on you to get better at communicating. So it's not easy, but that would be my answer. I think it's the job of the expert to explain their expertise. What do you think?
I agree. So
End of the
no controversy there, but yes, I agree. Especially when it's incumbent upon the task, so that like you have a certain feature, and to motivate it, you need to know why, right? You need to know the business reasons why we're doing a certain thing.
Yeah.
And if it gets blocked, you need to know why a certain thing is blocked and what technical hurdles there are. And so it's up to the product manager to discuss why we're doing a particular feature. What's the motivation? And to like connect all the dots and tell a story, whatever you have to do to get it in everyone's heads to know why a particular thing's happening. And then similarly, if you are blocked technically, or things are going slower than what we anticipated, it's up to the team lead or whatever to be able to explain it in terms. And I find that that's where I find that happens to be one of those places where product managers and engineers tend to talk across one another. Like
Yes.
you ask, is it possible if we to do whatever? And then like that's not really a good question to ask. Hot tip, not a good question to ask, because the answer is always like yes. The answer is always yes. It's possible, but that does not getting to what you want it to be. And so, getting the answer you actually want, which is, can we do this in a specific amount of time? You know, that I think sometimes it's not, but sometimes it literally is this possible? But those those are the moments where, you know, we each have to like communicate in terms the others will understand. And so educating yourself on the other's roles will help you do that. And you know, you have to maybe flail around for a metaphor to make it understood. But yeah, I think it's on you to communicate and being
So
able to communicate.
aren't you kind of contradicting what you had said in the Should Product Managers Be Technical episode then? So
No,
if
I
I
said
need to be
no.
technical, it's your job to explain to me
Yeah,
the technical elements.
right. But your job is better when you are technical, and I don't have to go so far out of, you know, I can have an accurate model, but not a precise. I can have an accurate metaphor, but not a precise metaphor. And so then you start applying that metaphor back to me, and then your mental models doesn't exactly match up, and so then you're tripped up. But if you're more technical, I don't have to do that. I can, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, fine. Fair enough. So I agree. And it definitely does make my life easier if I am technical. So let me ask you this, because there's a concept of, you know, kind of shielding people from information that they don't really need to understand. So let me give you a couple examples, right? There's a difference between me saying, Jason, you know, I'm QAing the app and it's not working. Why is it so broken? And then you say to me, oh, well, there's like 4 asynchronous calls, and then what's happening is that we're waiting, and then it's timing out, and then what's really happening is that it's a null pointer error, like blah blah blah, Hadoop cluster, jiggery pokery. And I'm just like, huh, what? Versus you just explaining, it's a bug that we discovered. It's going to take 2 days to fix. It has to do with things timing out.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so how do you know what level of information you should be communicating?
That's situation dependent. Yeah, like how do you know? I don't know. You kind of read the room. You like hopefully if you've worked with these people enough so that you know their technical level. And so then, you know, you have to pause and think, and okay, how do we relate it to what they know? I find, you know, when they kind of, so what they could be doing when they're describing a problem like that, they're trying to partially solve it in their heads, and then they give you that partial solution, and you're like, what are you talking about? Show me what you mean. And then you see, oh, it's a bug. But because they you know, in the absence of any mental model, they're going to come up with their own. And when that doesn't match reality, maybe it's better to explain to them how it works. And so then that, you know, again, the mental model kind of matches up again with the code. uh, so that kind of thing, when they're applying their own solution, their own kind of way to solve it, and you say, and then I can say, well, no, it's not going to work because you don't know what you're talking about. Then I can explain what actually is going on, and they're like, oh, okay, because that might give them into more insight into how the app works, and then they can apply it when they're testing again. But to your, you know, earlier thing where there's 4 asynchronous calls and I gotta, that's usually irrelevant. Like it doesn't.
That was good though, right? That was like a good.
Kind of, yeah, it's good, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I agree with you that it depends on the audience, right? Like, and I would generally advise people to start with the big picture and then allow the person to ask clarifying questions if they care to get a more detailed understanding.
Right.
because at the same time, you don't want to be condescending and be like, oh, it's a bug, you wouldn't get it, like, we'll fix it in 2 days. Because then it's like, well, excuse me, like, I'd like to understand why, the release
Right.
is being held up for 2 days. I need some more information. It's not sufficient for you to say it's a bug and brush it off that way.
Right.
And then, okay, so then the other thing, though, and this relates back to our episode about deadlines, as a PM, should like, so I have my own opinion about this, which is that I should not be shielding, again, right, going back to the concept of like shielding people from what they do and do not need to know, just because it's like everybody's brain can only take so much. And so it's just better for everyone to be more focused on their own area of expertise rather than everybody kind of trying to do everybody's job, right? So let's say there is a really big board meeting coming up, or a really big conference or event or something that makes it so that it's really important that we get this right and that the app is ready by this date and it's working well and it's demoable. And you know about the deadline and you know that it's because of an event or whatever. But as we're getting closer, the executives are starting to just lose it. They're freaking out. It's a really high stakes thing. And whether or not the board is going to invest more money relies entirely on the performance of this demo. To what degree should I be imparting that information? Because at some point, it's like no longer really helpful for me to just hover over your shoulder and be like, Jason, it's really important that you don't fuck this up. Like, that's not really helpful. But at the same time, if you just see a whole bunch of executives' hairs on fire and you don't really understand why it's like that, like maybe there's that disconnect, right? So which would you prefer? Would you prefer to know more than you need to know? Or would you prefer to just know exactly the amount that you actually need to know so that you can focus on your job?
I'd want to know that the executives are getting their hair on fire. Definitely. I'd say, hey, invite them in. We'll see, they can sit and debug it if they want, if it's so hairy and they brought this deadline on and all this stuff. That's often, get them in the boat with you. Good advice. But yeah, like
you hear about managers having to like protect you from that, right? Like a good technical manager, for example, would protect you from some of that pressure so that you're not going home
I don't know,
stressed every night.
Maybe I'm just going to be stressed anyway, right? Because there's this deadline. I'd rather the executive see me doing the work and say, wow, it's all because of Jason. Thank goodness he's there. So, I think, so if there is a big deadline, like there's a huge deadline and really everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing. Just let us do it. And don't book meetings to give us status, for us to give status on shit that would be better served doing the work. That happens. Like either there's an emergency and so just let us get the work done, or there isn't an emergency and then book all these status meetings. Like when those two happen at the same time.
But you understand that like, people are not booking status meetings to just like sit around and look at each other like a bunch of goats. Like
I know what you're doing, but you don't need it. You can look at Jira. You can do other things.
High stakes, and it's like you want to make sure that because it's high stakes and you have all these people going off on their own, that they're building the right thing.
Yeah.
That they're building the right thing, and because people in general do suck at communicating, you don't want last minute surprises. So it's not like we're doing status meetings because we're like, oh, let's take some time away from Jason to get his real work.
That's literally what you're doing. Yes, that's what you're doing. That's what's going on. Yeah. And how do we get back on the top of her?
This is like a Simpsons episode. This has nothing to do with our topic anymore. Anyways, we're out of time, guys. Let us know in the comments how you communicate the very technical parts of your job or high expertise parts of your job to the layman.
Click subscribe also. Bye.
Bye.